Inspiring interviews with today's top landlords. This is the Rental Income Podcast. And now, Dan Lane.
George, you bought a small apartment building. The numbers looked great on paper. It looked like you were going to make a bunch of money. It was going to be an incredible deal. But things didn't go exactly the way that you thought they were going to go. Can you tell us what happened?
So there were a few things that went wrong. We had some construction cost overruns. We overrun with time. Interest rates went way up on us. And then the insurance market in Florida really imploded. But we were able to deal with all those things because we bought something at a great price with way under market rents. And, through the entire process, we were actually able to double the rents along the way. So I think the big lesson there for me is margin of safety. If you buy right and you have some margin of safety in your plan, so hey, if things take a little longer than you expect, or you can't refinance out at the at the price you expected, that you're still going to do just fine.
I love that about rental properties. You can make a lot of mistakes, a lot of things can go wrong, but in the long run, things usually work out. And on the show today, we're going to walk through what happened to George, how he overcame those challenges, and how this ended up being a great investment. Joining us on the podcast today from Detroit is George Roberts. We'll take a quick break to thank our sponsors. We'll come right back and we'll talk to George. Investing in rental properties can be complicated, but it doesn't have to be. My friends at Mid-South Home Buyers sell completely rehab turnkey properties in both Memphis and Little Rock, and they've been doing it for 23 years. All their properties come totally rehab. They put on a new roof, new kitchen, new bath, new plumbing, new electric. Everything is brand new. They also have a tenant that's moved in before you close, so you get cash flow on day one. Mid-South Home Buyers also continues to manage the property for you after closing. It couldn't be easier. Everything is 100% done for you. All their properties also come with a couple of guarantees. They have a 1-year total maintenance warranty and a lifetime occupancy guarantee. Personally, I just closed on my 5th property with Mid-South Home Buyers, and I couldn't be happier. If you want to talk to a happy customer, reach out to me. I'm happy to answer any questions, or you can check them out at midsouthhomebuyers.com. It's a lot of work to find a really good rental property, and when you actually find that property, you want to make sure you're working with a lender that can get that loan closed. The lender that I recommend is Chaley Ridge from Ridge Lending Group. She's a nationwide lender, and her specialty is helping investors finance rental properties. She has a ton of loan programs, and she can find something customized to you for your situation. If you want to find out more or you're ready to get started today, just go to ridgelendinggroup.com. That's RIDGE lendinggroup.com, NMLS 42056. George, let's start off talking about how you got started buying rentals. What was your very first rental property?
Well, I was an accidental landlord. This was in the depths of the Great Recession, 2010. I really wanted to move up. I mean, it made a lot of sense to buy the family a nicer home to live in. But then the question is what to do with the old house when you can't really sell it. I mean, you're selling it for pennies on the dollar. So what we did is we just kept it. And that was really my entree into this beautiful world of cash flow real estate investing.
So did you have any interest in buying a rental? If the market had been different and you were able to sell the property and get a good price for it, would you have sold, or were you interested in buying a rental and getting cash flow?
So I had zero interest at that point. I was a bioscientist and just literally working all day long. We call it being chained to the bench. And the idea of going out and becoming an entrepreneur at that point in my life or focusing on investing was total outer space.
Sure.
And so then I really had only one rental up until 2020, and that's when I purchased the Orlando apartment, 14 units.
That's a pretty big step up. What made you want to go so big?
Well, I think there's basically two ways to look at it. I think residential real estate is very good. And if that's where you're at, it's a fine place to be. But if you decide that you want to go for multifamily, I would say just go for the largest number of units you can
Mhm.
buy and finance and essentially be trusted to purchase because the brokers are a lot different when it comes to commercial real estate. They're going to look at you, and if you've never purchased commercial real estate, they're going to look at you with a squint and say, well, how are you going to close this thing? And for us, the answer was seller financing. Now, if we'd gone to Fannie Mae or Freddie Mac and said, hey, we want to buy this difficult property and we're going to go renovate it and then we're going to refinance it in a couple of years, they would look at us like we're crazy. But that seller financing made it possible.
Sure. Okay, now you live in Detroit and this property is in Orlando. Why did you look so far away? Like, why not try to find a property closer to home?
Right. Well, part of the issue is, you mentioned Detroit. It's a difficult situation there. But I'm joking a little bit. I mean, it's getting much better now. Recently, Detroit has been uh, towards the top of the list in terms of rent increases. But when you go for commercial real estate, you can really purchase anywhere as long as you've got somebody on the team who's willing to be the boots on the ground. And we did. One of our partners actually moved down to their work there and live there on site. So when you have the whole country open to you, I think it's a real waste then if you do go and invest in your backyard, unless your backyard happens to be an area with great demographics and fabulous
Mhm.
tailwinds.
Sure. Okay, so you got some partners to buy this. So who were your partners? Or I guess like how many partners did you have?
So this was three of us. I met one at the local real estate meetup. We only had one multifamily meetup in the area at that time, close to me at least. And then the other one was his brother.
One of the partners moved close to the property. Did he move there just because you bought this building, or was he planning on moving there anyway?
I mean, he had some ties to the area. His son was working out there, but really, I mean, he was there on site and then did, yes, eventually move in. He started, I think it was he had his RV out there parked on the property, which was no big deal. When, we took it over, I'll be quite clear with you. I mean, how do you get into an apartment in Orlando at that price point? I think we were just at about little over 50,000 a unit. Well, it was, terrible. It was
Yeah.
a total, it was a total, sorry, the word's not coming to my mind, but, it was a slumlord situation,
Yeah.
right?
Okay.
So it was no big deal for him to be out there in the RV when we took it over. But then as things got better, he had to move that off site and he actually did move into one of the units.
Okay. So you've got this 14 unit building that sounds like it's in pretty bad shape. And so you guys are going to fix it up, make it nice and get a higher rent. But you've got the tenants in there that are used to living in those bad conditions. Like, what did you do? Like, did you kick out all the tenants and then start the rehab, or did you rehab as properties as the units were turning over?
Well, it was a little bit of both. I mean, once we started to rehab those units, a lot of people they're just going to self evict because what happens is the rent is going up, and you don't really have to necessarily force anyone out. As the leases expired, we renovated the units, and then over about a year, uh, I don't think there was a single of the original tenants that decided to stay.
Okay, and
And we
is
did
that
actually double the rents, and that makes it hard. It's really a different demographic at that point.
so? Your rents, they were 600, and you brought it up to 1,200.
Yeah, they were 600, 625, 650, something like that. Yeah, we got them up to 12, $1,300. And I know that the two bedroom, we only have one two bedroom on the property. I think that's going now for about 1,700. So I mean, we definitely raised the rents
Yeah.
quite a bit. But the real sticky issue, Dan, is in between. Uh, you're going to have tenants that are moving into nicer units and maybe not, necessarily noticing that they're living next to people that do live in a different way. I mean,
Right.
I can't even begin to tell you how much hot smoke rolls out of the windows of these lower priced units. It's pretty sad what people spend their money on when they have
Yeah.
no money.
Yeah.
But all that, of course, had to change.
Yeah, I mean that's got to be the toughest part is just that transition where
Yeah.
you're taking a bad building and making it nice. Well, let's go over some of the problems that you ran into. So the construction cost was over budget. What happened?
Well, everything. When you budget for construction, budget at least 20% over. And that, I mean, I say that with a smile on my face. That's just beginning
Mhm.
because you never know exactly what's going to happen. Well, during due diligence, we we were told not to go to the east side of the building today. We can see those units tomorrow. Well, why? Well, one of my partners slipped away and saw a door open and knocked and said, hey, can we, can I talk to you for a minute? And the guy said, "Oh, sure, yeah, I'm just leaving. My roof's leaking." So that's something that we were not told and we didn't see until we were on site. Hey, another great tip about due diligence: if you have the option, pick a rainy day
Mm,
when you
yeah.
go.
Yeah.
So naturally we asked for concessions, and because we were getting such a great price, we were denied. We were told that he's just going to cancel this contract if you don't go through with it, and so we did. So even going into it, we knew that the construction costs were going to be higher than we had budgeted, and then from there, it was just a matter of realizing how bad the property was. And of course, we had a professional inspector, we had a GC on the team as an equity partner, et cetera. But when you go in there and you realize that it's not just a one-off that somebody had a fire, because you can see we could see some sort of you can see the soot around an outlet when there's been a fire. You can see that the electrical was worse than we thought, and we just decided we were just going to go from one end to the other. So I
Right.
think that it was really it was we call it Niagara Falls. We had Niagara Falls on the east side. That really got us in the mindset of why don't we just go from end to end, and then we essentially have a new asset.
And how were you paying for the rehab?
So luckily for us, we were able to self-fund the
Okay.
rehab. And so
Okay.
why is that a good thing? Because look, if we had agency financing, they would have never let us get down to 50% vacancy. And if we had a construction loan, when the rates went way, way up, then we would have had to find a way out of that. It wasn't easy to refinance the entire construction costs. We were able to make different decisions because we self-funded. We were able to say, okay, fine, we will go over budget, but now we have an apartment, which, and I should have looked at the numbers before I came to the interview, but I want to say that it's, like maybe even with the insurance crazy in Florida, like mid to high 30s in terms of expense ratio. So, I mean, this thing runs like a dream.
Yeah.
We don't want to sell this thing.
All right. So as far as the cash to get into the deal, so everybody put in 87,000 for the down payment.
Right.
And then how much did everybody have to put in for the construction?
Yeah, so that's an interesting story. Basically, I funded the construction, but really we funded it at least two ways because our GC, which again was our major partner, the one who was the boots on the ground in the deal, he's living on site. So totally committed to the project in a way that you're never going to have a GC
Right.
that's committed like that. So he actually opted not to get paid throughout. And then we were able to sort of keep the bills down a little bit like that. So we were able to sort of have our dream of that we were going to have a completely new apartment with laundry hookups and everything, with at the same time, being able to totally call the shots.
Right. Okay. And so everything was over budget and it took longer than you expected to get done. How much longer did it take?
Well, hey, I want to say that the whole thing probably took close to 3 years. But again, I want to remind the audience that the plan, the scope changed over the process. So it was not entirely a surprise. And then the other thing is we wanted to keep it cash flowing. So we didn't just try and kick everybody out as quickly as we could. We did it slowly over time. We were happy to do a couple of units at a time. So the way that bit us, it wouldn't have been a big deal if the rates hadn't gone up like crazy. So, we did end up getting bit, but that was not so much because we couldn't have gone faster with the construction, but we felt we didn't need to.
And then the other issue that you ran into was the insurance. And this is, becoming a big problem in Florida and a lot of the coastal states with all the hurricanes that we've had. The insurance rates have really skyrocketed. So did that really hurt you guys?
Well, it did. But when you have a great cash flowing property and we're buying with under market rents, and when you make significant improvements such that you're actually able to double the rent, you can absorb that. So I don't want to overplay it. I mean, I don't want to soft pedal it either. I mean, the interest has just been absolutely nuts in Florida. But again, if you have a good asset and you manage it right and you purchase at the right price, yeah, we were able to absorb it. So I wouldn't say that's been too big of an issue, but it's just a matter of how good the deal is. I mean, this deal, and I wouldn't say that we had necessarily more problems than expected. I mean, to me, this is sort of a standard deal. Nothing in your pro forma shows up as expected, but it was a great deal, and it's still a great deal, despite everything that went wrong.
So I think that's really the key on why we're doing a show here about why this is a great deal versus this was the worst deal you ever did, was right. That you bought the property right. You got a really good deal on it. And then it sounds like you're managing it right. You managed your construction right. And although you had cost overruns, it seems yes. Like it wasn't the end of the world.
No, it wasn't. I mean, again, like I said, we got some laundry hookups out of it, and we got a totally new building, essentially. I mean, we totally gutted the building. So we may have overdid it a little bit, but it was a group decision, and we were happy with it.
And so everything's been working out great with that building. There's good tenants.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, this is one of my favorite deals. When we sell this or when we refinance it, we're talking major payday. It cash flows. It cash flowed essentially the entire time. Even when we were at 50% occupancy, we rarely had to loan money to the project to keep it going. Because, I mean, understand, this is our first deal. And although, we certainly did budget for, working capital, et cetera, I guess I'll just let our listeners know that, I am doing quite well. So I was not too worried about having something 50% occupied and from time to time having to loan money to the project.
I think my biggest takeaway from talking to George is just how important it is to make sure you get a really good deal when you're buying a property. George got a great deal on this property, $50,000 a door. The units are rented for $1,200 or more. So it didn't kill his cash flow when the interest rates went up, when the insurance costs went up, when he had construction overrun. It was really okay because he had a really good deal. And I think that's really the key to making sure that you're successful with rental properties. George has gone on to do several more deals. He's doing great with his portfolio, and he's written a book about his experience. It's called Passionate Living Through Passive Investing. If you want to check it out, I've got a link to it on my website. You can find it at rentalincomepodcast.com/episode 507. I'd like to thank Chaley Ridge for sponsoring today's episode. If you're looking to buy a rental property, whether you're just getting started or you want to add to your portfolio, reach out to Chaley. She has a ton of different loan programs, and she can find something that'll work for you. If you want to find out more, you can track her down at ridgelendinggroup.com, NMLS 42056. Thank you so much for checking out the podcast today. Make sure you hit the follow button. I put out a new episode every single Tuesday, and if you're following this show, you'll never miss an episode. My name is Dan Lane, and this has been the Rental Income Podcast.